alive. Good morning. It is Thursday, the 9th of May, and was it the 8th of May? Oh. Anyway, it's 9:29. The Laird and the Lady. It is a book, a novel this time, by Joan Marshall Grant. She was a writer of her own far memories, and she has written seven books of her previous incarnations, and this one is a fiction. It starts in a romantic French chateau, and the Laird and the Lady meet, but they have made up a story because they had two cars, and because they pretended to be married already, they had to make up a story to the staff, which was at this chateau. We are now in chapter 7, and it is entitled Decor. Marylda was asleep when Rowan came to her room, for her head had ached sufficiently for her to take one of the capsules the doctor had left, and it had proved unexpectedly strong. He stood looking down at her, and then walked silently to the open window and scribbled a few lines on the back of an envelope. "I've said I found your key so you can produce yours. Ask Honorine to let me know if I can come back later, or whether you'd rather not be disturbed. You look very charming asleep, and you don't snore." He propped the note against a vase of flowers on the bedside table and went to his room to unpack. Several times he listened at the communicating door, but he heard nothing, for Marylda had been careful to make no noise when she went to her dressing room. While Rowan changed into a dinner jacket, he considered it was odd to find how rapidly being in love destroyed self-sufficiency. For the first time, he was thoroughly bored with his own company. Should he wait up here, or fill in the hour until dinner by exploring the house? Might as well explore. Marylda might be interested to hear what he discovered. The dog met him at the foot of the staircase, and put its paws on his shoulders while attempting to lick his face. Then it trotted along a wide corridor and waited for a door to be opened. Obviously, it was more efficient as a guide than a guard. The room was evidently a library, for two walls were lined from floor to ceiling with books in tooled leather bindings. On each side of the massive fireplace were buhl cabinets of dueling pistols, which Rowan, finding them congenial to his mood, examined with interest. He then opened one of the 4 windows, each in a deep embrasure, for the walls were nearly 6 feet thick, and looked down at a sheer drop to where the chateau merged into the natural rock of the crag on which it was built. To his left he could see another of the round towers with conical red-tiled roofs. There were 7 in all, of which 3 were part of the house, and the rest guarded the walls which defended the place from the north, where a spur of almost level ground joined it to steep hillside beyond. With a momentary feeling of disloyalty, he admitted that this castle had some advantages over his own. Providing the water supply was adequate, and the original builder must have made sure of that, it could withstand a siege almost as well today as when it was first raised. He toyed with the pleasant thought of pouring boiling lead on the heads of armed men who came expecting to wrest Marylda from him, then grinned at himself for being too romantic. Why bother with lead when there were plenty of swords hanging in the hall, and Tourbillon's revolver as a last resource? "We are almost too well defended against unwelcome callers," he said to the dog. "No wonder you don't take your duties seriously. We will now continue our conducted tour." He found nothing of particular interest in the drawing room, though he thought that Marylda might like the chairs, which reminded him of the ones in the housekeeper's room at Cloud. They were, in fact, very similar, being covered with petit pois, whose flowers and fruit were as vivid as when they had been embroidered in the reign of Louis. I can't read. when that was. He hoped that Marylda wouldn't think Cloud was a little shabby. If she wanted to do it up a bit, he would have to persuade Georgina to agree to spend capital. Yes, it was quite time he exerted himself. After all, it was his own money. He heard footsteps, but not the ones for which he had been hoping. Tourbillon, now wearing full livery, came into the room and announced pontifically, "Monsieur, I have laid dinner in the yellow sitting-room. Honorine considered that you would forgive the informality." Rowan followed him to a room panelled with Chinese brocade that matched the curtains and their elaborately draped palmets. The ceiling had been painted by Bouchier. The carpet was an even finer aubusson than the one upstairs, but Rowan did not notice any of these details, for Marylda was lying on a recamier couch by the open window. He had been prepared for an invalid, and even then it would have been difficult enough to remind himself that she must be protected from any emotional disturbance. But how was he going to act as the aloof, considerate stranger to this incredibly beautiful woman? Being inexperienced, he did not guess that Marylda had taken the trouble to find out the colour scheme of the room before deciding that the garnet red satin from Decor would have been even more enchanting than the grey Balenciaga. She put down the book she had been pretending to read, smiled at him and said, "Darling, how nice to see you. I thought you were going to be late for dinner." Tourbillon coughed discreetly. "Madame thought you would prefer champagne to Beaujolais, even though we have no ice." "Madame, as usual, is entirely correct," said Rowan. So that was chapter 7. Chapter 8 is called Equipage. Have a good Thursday.